I am sure there'll be many more videos about Grand Teton National Park. As much as I love that place and as much time as I've spent there, there'll be episodes about its animals, its hiking, its history, and more. But this installment of Walt's Wanderings will cover my introduction to that beautiful park. So many people don't budget enough time for Grand Teton and just zip through it on their way to or from Yellowstone. And Yellowstone is certainly spectacular, and I'll talk more about that in future episodes, especially the parts a lot of people seem to miss to concentrate on the geysers, but those are stories for another day. In September of 2021, as part of a longer road trip to also visit Zion and Petrified Forest National Parks, as well as Denver and Sedona, a friend and I spent 3 days visiting Yellowstone and 2 days visiting Grand Teton. I fell in love with Grand Teton. And the next spring, when I heard of a job in the park, I jumped at the chance to live there for the summer. Yes, Yellowstone may have the drama of the geysers and boiling mud pots, but for sheer beauty, Grand Teton is my favorite. I follow a couple on Instagram who have visited all 63 national parks, and they once did a ranking of their favorite parks in various categories: best hiking, wildlife viewing, beauty, etc. And they gave Grand Teton the #1 spot as the best all-around park. I've been to 43 parks, and so far, I'd have to agree with them. My first suggestion is if you're going to Yellowstone, do take the time to really see Grand Teton. As I've reported in other videos, often when I visit national parks, I'm greeted by wildlife I don't normally get to see. And when we first pulled into the parking lot for the Jackson Lake Lodge, we saw this little feller. Not a bad welcoming committee. We caught the last boat of the season across Jenny Lake to be able to hike up to Hidden Falls, which really weren't that well hidden. We had no trouble finding them, and then to Inspiration Point. Unfortunately, we didn't have much time to linger on the point. We thought we had to hurry back to catch the last boat. Missing the boat would have meant a 2.5-mile hike around the lake to get back to the car, and it would have been dark by the time we finished. But when we got down to the boat launch, the line was over an hour long, and the staff assured us they would not leave anyone behind and would keep running boats as long as anyone needed a ride. After I was living in Grand Teton the following year, I went back to Hidden Falls and Inspiration Point several more times, sometimes taking the boat and sometimes hiking around Jenny Lake. In fact, my first hike of that year, when I was working there, was the one after the boat ride to Inspiration Point and Hidden Falls. On the hike up to Inspiration Point, I finally got to see some marmots. Like bighorn sheep, which were reported to be in so many parks I had visited, but it took me years to actually see one. I'd been wanting to see marmots for years, which apparently are in many national parks, but I had always missed them. We saw quite a few on this hike, including some with babies quite close to the trail. With all the spring runoff, the water was running high when we crossed the bridge, and the waterfall was quite full. After our hike, we did take the boat back. I had learned my lesson, and there was no need to rush. The line would take a while, but it also was not the last boat of the season, or even of the day, so there was no need to hurry. But waiting wasn't bad. Everyone was in a good mood in that beautiful place, and the scenery was awesome. And the view of the Tetons from the boat as we crossed Jenny Lake was also incredible. If you ever make it to Grand Teton, I highly recommend the boat ride across to Hidden Falls and Inspiration Point. Toward the end of that first summer that I worked in Grand Teton, my friend Wyatt and I decided to hike beyond Inspiration Point and on up Cascade Canyon. Cascade Canyon is the large gap in the Tetons visible from the valley and Jenny Lake, so it is enticing. It was the longest hike I did that summer, 13 miles for the up and back. But it was only that long because we started too late, and by the time we got to the parking lot at Jenny Lake, there were no parking spaces left. We had to park over a mile down the road. Note to self, get up and start earlier next time. Although when I had been working all night at the Coulter Bay Cabins, it was difficult for me to get too early a start that summer. It was one of those hikes that when we got to our peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at the halfway point, it was one of the most amazing meals I've ever had. Funny what hunger will do for you and make taste really good. I was beyond exhausted when we got back to the car. It was exhausting, but worth it. The scenery was amazing. On the way back, we saw a moose, but he was too far off in the bushes for a good photo, but it was fun to just stop and watch him for a while. We were high enough up to get a good view of one of the few remaining glaciers in the park. I had crossed Jenny Lake a few more times in the boat and hiked around the lake a few times as well. It's not advisable to hike alone in bear country, but because there were always so many people on the Jenny Lake Trail, I felt comfortable doing it alone if I could not find anyone with whom to hike. Given my odd work hours, that was sometimes a problem. On one of those lone hikes, I did encounter a bear. As always, I shot it with my long lens so as not to spook him or endanger myself. But this one was also so occupied tearing apart a log to get grubs that he seemed oblivious to the people who were getting much closer than I wanted to. I was also less concerned about my safety because it was a black bear, and they are notably less aggressive than grizzlies, but still not to be trifled with. Notice the bear is brown. Like red foxes and gray squirrels, the color is the common term for these animals, but not necessarily the color of a specific animal. There are brown black bears and black brown bears. The best way to tell a grizzly is by the ears, which are small and rounded like a teddy bear's, and they have a hump between their shoulder blades. This is a grizzly I shot on a different day, again with the long lens and from the safety of my car. Black bears have ears that stick up like a German shepherd's, and they have no hump. Notice this bear's ears and lack of shoulder hump. He is a brown black bear. You can also tell the difference in the bears by examining their claws. Grizzlies have much bigger claws, but in my experience, it's really not a good idea to try to measure a bear's claws. I will have lots more to say about bear encounters, both black and grizzly, in future installments of Walt's Wanderings, and lots more to say about Grand Teton National Park. Subscribe so you don't miss those episodes.